Hey everyone, and welcome back to BakedHR. My name's Jasmine Wilkes here with my co-host Christina Minyard. How are you doing today, Christina?
I am doing well. How are you, Jasmine?
I'm doing good. It's a gorgeous Sunday today. It is April and it's my birthday week.
Birthday month. Listen, don't be shy. It's birthday month. Birthday month.
True.
Are you doing anything exciting for your birthday?
We are going to I think it's called a day trip around Alabama to see some waterfalls and hike a little bit. So if I don't make it back, y'all know what happened.
Well, hopefully I have a new co-host here with us right now. If you don't make it back, we'll just make that transition real smooth for everyone. But you'll make it back. Are you guys going to wear your masks?
Of course.
Just since Alabama is not enforcing a mask mandate anymore, I thought I'd throw that out there and see.
We still believe in masks around here, even, when fully vaccinated, we completely still believe in masks. It's just getting too close to people. It's just so weird now. But that's another thing. Okay.
Anyway, so we're super excited. We love when we have a guest on. And we were just talking about how the first time we met, it was a work human conference, right? And we met on the bus back when it was safe to be really close to people. And we were in Nashville, and you were going to go out and buy an ornament for your tree from Nashville. And I just knew right then that you were my people, because that's what we do whenever we go to a new city, we get some kind of ornament that represents the local trip. So that's fun. So I think now you have to tell everyone what the ornament was. And then tell our audience as little or as much about yourself as you'd like.
Yes, thanks. So the ornament is an acoustic guitar that was cut out of wood, some hand fashioned wood acoustic guitar that was done by a local artist that we found in a shop kind of off the beaten path in Nashville. So that's what we do. Yeah, it was a really fun coincidence.
Artist. I think that just perfect.
Yeah. It just gets a little confusing sometimes because we've picked up some really random things along the way. And when they don't scream the city that they came from, we kind of have to look at each other and go, where was this? Some of them are from like roadside stops in like Williams, Arizona on Route 66. Some of them are real bizarre. And I don't want to write on them, but yes.
Toss it all in an Excel spreadsheet.
My husband's like, we got to put up tags. Like, we're not putting tags on our Christmas ornaments, and the tree looks all weird, but yeah.
Love it.
So, my name is Talia Edmundson, and I am the founder and principal of HRnB Consulting, which is a consulting practice that literally exists of just me. And I started 4 weeks before COVID, so that was fun to in December of 2019, leave a completely stable job with a career path and a team, and realize that I wasn't happy anymore, and I was going to go and find my next thing. And I took a company. It was a startup when I got there. It was like 40 people when I got there, and I took that business to 475.
Whoa!
Operating out of 3 cities. With 3 super brilliant co-founders. And, as you can imagine, during 7.5 years time and growing a business, there's a lot of change, and I loved the pace. So when I left, I was like, I'm going to go work for another startup because I'm going to do the same thing again. And I started interviewing with a bunch of, Philly's big, there's a huge startup community here. And I started talking with a bunch of folks, and I realized that not only did they not need someone like me just yet, but if I could somehow figure out how to work with as many of them as possible, then I could try to support all of their different needs. And then it basically became a thing. Like, people, after I had said to them, I'm too far along for what you need, but I know I have a great Rolodex. Like, let's talk. Let's figure out how to get you who you need, and at different stages. And let's talk about what HR is even supposed to be. A lot of people don't know, especially if you've never had a business before. And then they just said, well, do you want to consult for us? And at first I said no, because the idea scared me. And then I realized if I was going to do it, that it was a good time, because this is before we knew there was going to be a global health crisis, of course. But I have the super privilege of being on my husband's benefits. So unfortunately, healthcare being tied to your employer puts like such a mental hardship on, you guys know this, such a mental hardship on, what your career could be if you have to pay for healthcare. It's very frustrating. But knowing that that was like a major box that I had ticked off, I felt like, okay, I'm going to give it a decent amount of time, and we'll see what happens. And it was a year on Valentine's Day.
Oh, wow.
So it's the 1 year of this little adventure of mine. So it turned out to be pretty good.
That is awesome. Congratulations on your 1 year and a couple of months now.
Yeah, thanks.
We should chat. All of this feels very familiar. Like
I was going to say, like, one of the reasons we, of course, had you on, one, we just knew, we had certain people we want to have on BakedHR.
Thanks.
And then two, I was like, oh, this is a perfect time, because we were talking about leadership and, me needing to figure out how to become a leader. But everything that you just said just kind of spoke to Christina.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw a few, I was trying to like read between the lines a little bit on the socials, and I was like, I wonder what's going on there. But we can talk about leadership too.
I'm this week, so we can.
Good. You should call me. Yeah.
So I absolutely love your name, your company name as well, HRnB Consulting. I was like, oh, I love that when I saw it, when you rolled out and everything. So I absolutely love that, and thank you for breaking down, what you do and the process behind it and how you came to be with this company. So that answered our first question about HRnB Consulting and what you do. So tonight's topic, as we said, we're going to talk about leadership. And one of the questions that we have for you is, how companies, and not just startups, but companies all over the world are putting people into leadership positions that may not necessarily be ready or even want to be in a leadership position. So how do you think companies should measure if an employee is truly ready to take that next step into leadership?
I always find it interesting when no one stops to actually ask the employee if they want it. It's like you end up on someone's succession chart, or someone 9-boxed you and went, yep, this person's a leader, and that the employee could be perfectly fine doing what they're doing. They know that whatever they're working on probably fits into their life, it probably fits into their professional goals. It's okay to not aspire to be a leader or to want to manage people. I don't put leadership and management in the same category all the time. But I find it interesting how first the companies, don't always ask someone if they want to be in a position that they're being, considered for, because they may not want to. To figure out if someone's ready for, that job, obviously, like I just said, ask them first. But then making sure that the reasons that they want to be in the role align with whatever your values are, or why that person was even brought up in conversation in the first place. So, I was talking with someone the other day who had an employee that approached them and said, I really thought that that person was going to report to me. And I said, well, did you engage, with this person and find out why they even want to be a manager, leader? Your job in that function is to grow others, or you are going to be, if you're not managing a person, you're in a position that as a leader, folks are kind of supposed to, like look up to you a bit, like as someone who's in a leadership position, as the one that kind of embodies everything that, you know, an organization is supposed to stand for, especially if it's a big group. Smaller groups like the ones that I work with, their leadership teams are often managing others because they're, you know, I focus primarily on companies that have like 75 and fewer. Okay. So a lot of times those folks, the leaders, are managers who are doing double duty. So having conversations around, you know, what it actually takes to be in that job, because there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with it. It's not just the title and, you know, a salary that goes along with. There's an intense responsibility. Aside from growing other people, I also find it interesting when folks in those positions can't explain why they got there. So if I were to say, okay, Jasmine, you know, I want an opportunity to be in this job. How'd you do it? And you're like, I don't know. And, you know, it turns into something like, well, you know, I smile a lot and I'm here every day, so I guess that's why. And it's like, no, that's how you got to keep your job in the first place. Those things, you know, help you not get fired because you show up all the time. But, you know, what is the criteria? What is it? You know, what is the quantifiable reason why someone is even being considered, you know, for this role? Is it contribution to a metric that is incredibly important to the business? Is it leadership qualities? Again, that like fit is garbage. We know this. So what are the, you know, empathetic qualities that Christina has? What are the, you know, the soft skills that Jasmine has? Like identifying what these things are, that what a company believes a leader should have, and then identifying those in others. So I don't know if that's necessarily, you know, measurable in a very traditional sense, but you could at least, you know, scorecard them out and say, these are the must-haves of what a leader or a manager is supposed to have before we put them into that role.
So I like that you pointed out that you don't put like managers and leaders, like it's not interchangeable. It's not the same role. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that, you know, like I think back to my first job as a manager, I was promoted into that role because I was really good at the day tasks. I didn't have somebody who was saying, Christina, we're going to develop you into a manager or we're going to develop you into a leader. It was like, you're here, you're really good at this. We're going to give you all of this. Good luck. And so I think it's super great that Jasmine's in a position where she has someone who's pouring into her and saying, hey, let's make that transition from you're doing these tasks that I know I can trust you to do. How do you level up and become a leader? And that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, they're going to make Jasmine manager by the end of the year, which I would be totally happy to see if they did, by the way, Jasmine. But like,
that would be a new job and promotion in the same year, right?
Right. That'd be awesome. That would really start to make up for 2020. Right. Not fully, but it would be in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
But so like when someone feels like they're in a role that's not a manager role, but they're trying to become a leader, like where should they start? Like, are there resources that they can find on their own, or?
I think it takes a healthy amount of introspection too. Now, this is what I will preface what I'm about to say with, I hope that someone has other leaders in an organization that they can look up to, people they believe are worthy, right, of being regarded as a leader. Not everyone has that. But, you know, typically people in leadership positions are willing to at least have one conversation with you or, you know, whoever it is that's trying to go from manager to leader and try to figure out why they got there. So hopefully they know, right? But also, you know, trying to navigate, I think, some of the internal channels of how people interact with one another is often limited when you're at a certain level. So building your social capital inside and trying to figure out, you know, how to step out a little bit. And I would say, like, if there's a conversation that's being had maybe about a certain project, and you know a little bit about that thing, this one project, I would say, you know, at every opportunity, try to interject, you know, that knowledge or let it be known that you're more than what you're currently doing, that takes a lot of, like, I don't know what the right word is, but a lot of confidence, because you're really putting yourself out there, right? And they could have been like, Talia, it's not your turn. Like, you can stay over there, right? And again, this has a lot to do with organizational size and access to people. So this, what I'm saying, is not possible everywhere. Like, these situations don't always exist. So in that regard, I would say, learning from others, listening to the podcast, watching, a lot of what great people we know are doing. And I'm not talking about like just even within the HR community, like even outside of that. I still love books. I love to touch books. I don't have an e-reader. And there's a book, it's the John C. Maxwell book, that 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And it just always feels like a gold standard for me. And it's a very quick read. It's a big book, but somehow it feels like it's a fast read. And it's one of those, like, here's this law of leadership, here's a quick case study, and then this is why it's really important. And they're practical. But I think that, I forget how old that book is, but they still hold true. So I think if you realize you're in a position where talking with folks internally and putting yourself out there is not an option, there's a lot of self-education pieces that go along with it. It doesn't have to be college, doesn't have to be, something in a super formal education space. But I do think that there are some great resources for ways to kind of like build up what your internal reputation might be, try to build up that social capital.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the difficult things that I'm facing right now, is because over the last few years, as an HR generalist, I've been, the person that completed the task. And when I had an idea of something, or when I brought something to the table, not to say that it was ignored, but you can kind of tell that it was, okay, you said it, but let's go on to someone else who has more experience, or something that we've done in the past. Mm-hmm. And so now I have a person that's saying, so, tell me what you think about this. And I'm like, you really want me to like truly give you my input on this situation of how we can solve it? And, it's been kind of difficult for me to feel comfortable in doing that, because for so long it's just been, overlooked and kind of, like I said, kind of ignored in a way. So that is definitely something that I'm tackling right now and trying to get more confident in doing.
I think that happens often with generalists, because it's a position where you know so much, and you try to figure out how to put it in a way where you're presenting it in like another level. Mm-hmm. Right? So let me try to make a little bit more sense there. Generalists are like, the amount of stuff that a generalist does and touches and the trench work, I think it feels a bit like it doesn't have a typical structure. But if you're going to put something in either like a pitch, or you're going to ask for money, or you're going to, put a program together, to sit back and try to figure it out in a way that it's like, I can back this up with how much it's going to cost. I can make a projection of how many people it's going to impact. I can, I can forecast out what this might look like a year from now, 2 years from now, especially like for the folks that I talk with in the startups, that it's going to scale beyond, 6 months. Putting numbers and timeframes around it, you already know how to do the work, but then you actually have to show other people that you know how it's going to affect the business. And I think that sometimes is when folks are going to level up, that's where they practice a lot. And when they're, justifying the need, or, why the ask is there in the first place, or, putting this project together and showing that it was completely worthwhile, and here's why. Because the people that are in the positions that we want to be in speak that language. So it's trying to figure out how to put the language onto the work that you already know how to do. And I think that's also another way to show that you know your stuff, but also speak to it in that kind of like managerial leadership way that I think, you know, happens in the big room, right? That's happening in those conversations that people want to be part of.
Yes, definitely.
So Jasmine, can I ask you, it sounds like you have like somebody who really is interested in hearing whatever your ideas are. And you're still kind of holding yourself back because of like previous interactions. But how do you feel? Because sometimes, I mean, our role, right, in HR, we are having to prove ourselves to leadership, and then we're having to prove ourselves to employees too. How do you feel about, you know, being that leader in front of the employees and kind of building that? I love the social capital. I'm going to keep using that because that makes perfect sense to me. Like building that leadership social capital with the employees. Is that something that you feel like you're struggling with, or you're hesitant to do, or?
I'm normally, excuse me, I'm normally hesitant about it when I come into a role, but it's much easier for me because I kind of feel like, especially with the people I'm working with now, I feel like it's the playing field of, hey, look, I'm just going to lay it out for you, and these are the reasons why this is happening. This is what's going on. But so I have this program that I'm trying to put together for recruiting, which is basically just a referral program, but I need to pitch it to the HR manager and the VP of the company and the operations manager, because those are the three people it's going to affect the most. And so me having to sit down and calculate those numbers and get everything together in a form where I present this to them, it's like scaring the ever-loving crap out of me. But had I needed to do it with employees, I feel like I'd be like, okay, well, look, this is the reason why, this is how much we have, this is how much it's costing us, and, you know, just do it. And I don't, maybe that's just because they're in a leadership role that, you know, it's kind of scaring me more than it being with employees. If that makes sense.
There's a lot of unknowns that come along with it too. Like, you're going to work really hard and put together the best presentation that you can. Go into a room. I just realized I am not going to make this any less scary for you. Go into a room and you don't know what they want to see, right? So you're going to put all the numbers together that you think are the most important, and they're going to go, what about that one? And you're going to be like, and then, you know what? Thank you for that. I actually have the data to answer your question, but not with me right now. Would it be all right if I got it to you by the end of the day, or whatever, you know, framework, you know, would be reasonable for you? Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, you can prepare so much, and then you would end up in a 4-hour meeting, right? But you have to work within the time frame that's been given, and you're going to do everything that you can to show why this is a viable program. And then you're going to get a zinger and be like, But that doesn't mean you didn't do a good job. It just means that you got a zinger. That's all.
Yeah.
So maybe you didn't make it sound any less scary, but I think you gave her a very good solution for if she does get a zinger. That's really good.
Don't forget, you know, always remember what you know. People, you know, you got hired to do this job within the last 6 months, 7 months. I don't know. It's like the whole 2020 has been like a time warp. So, but like in a recent enough time where they're like, this is why we hired her in the first place. And then you know all the stuff that you know, and you're just going to go show them why a program like this will work. And the chances are you have what they're going to ask you for. You just didn't bring it with you. You'll go get it. No big deal.
So I'll watch this video right before I have to pitch it, and I'll be like,
yes, and power pose.
Let's go.
Yes. I happen to kind of like this one.
Let it all in. Get it in.
So one other thing we wanted to ask, and this one also leads into a story. So, you know, companies are trying to set up leadership. Some of them by, you know, building a succession plan and whatnot. But do you think companies should try to formulate their own leadership plan? Or do you think they should go outside and find other like resources, companies, maybe courses that someone should take to get into that leadership role?
Are you talking about having someone else come in to do a training, or someone else to come in and identify who like the leaders might be? Because there's people that do both, I think.
I think more so come in and do the training for them.
Oh, like leadership training.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Unless you have some sort of learning group within, like people who are actually knowing, like they know how to teach adults, instantly farm that out and spend the money. Like just get somebody else to come in and do the leadership training. And I say that as someone who did it twice a year for the better part of 6 years. I think we had a leadership development group come in, and they had, by the time I left, they had trained almost 80 employees because we put them through like different leadership training cycles. I had a director of learning and development on my team, and his learning and development was specifically focused on how to work in the company because we had a large contact center component, and a lot of the work that was being done was very specific to what the company sold. So it was like motorcycle apparel and hard parts and helmets, like all kinds of awesome stuff for bikes. But those things are super intricate. So that person's job was to know every single nut, bolt, piece, part, whatever it was to what we were selling. And he taught that to others. That doesn't mean he can stand up there and tell someone how to be a leader. It means he can teach you how to change the visor on your motorcycle helmet. So respect the work for what it is, and then bring in somebody else who doesn't know or who knows how to do what you don't know how to do internally. I say this all the time because we are in charge of people's lives to a degree. Not like we're curing cancer or anything, but what we do affects so much stuff. And to mess around with that and like half-ass what could potentially, push someone's career is selfish. It drives me crazy. And it's not, I think, it's expensive. Don't get me wrong. But I also think expense is relative, right, to the size of your organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave that away. I brought, and I vetted probably 4 or 5 different companies. A background check them just like you would, an employee. You have to check references. And then we had a little bit of a rocky start. So the company that ultimately ended up training like 80 or so of the folks when I was there, that was our 3rd vendor. The first one wasn't, I think, as leadership in focus. They were more manager tactical, which I was confident we could teach. How to have difficult conversations, how to have a one-on-one, those sorts of things, right? The second one, not as bad as the Panda Express, but I did think of this person when I read that article. Had an employee come to me and say, I know that man because he belonged to my church and he was in an inappropriate relationship with someone who was 17, turned 18, and he was a married person at the time. And she said, I can't in good conscience, like just kind of let him be, our leadership person. And I was like, I can't thank you enough for telling me that because, people's lives are their lives, but she was also one of the participants. So imagine like us sticking with that and saying like, it's okay. We'll finish up this cohort because we had everyone done in groups. So they had kind of like a buddy through the program and stuff. Imagine us saying, just to save face, just suck it up. And, that was a long time ago. And, we're going to stick with it. Her experience would have been ruined. As a business, I mean, what does that say? You're too embarrassed? Because obviously that is not something that would probably come up in a reference check, right? Because you kind of ref check the group that you're bringing in, and you do a phone interview with your facilitator, right? You do get to know that person a little bit, but how in the world are you going to find out that this was something that happened? And had we not had this person, get invited to participate in the training. We would have never known. So we decided that it was, best to end that engagement. We didn't, talk about the exact terms of why with the people that were going. But we put a pause on that. We collected ourselves as a company, and then went out and got a third resource, right? So sometimes you have to make changes too, for reasons that, because you want to have the best training for your folks. That's what happened with the first one. It just wasn't leadership enough, leadership driven. The second one was unfortunate. And then the third one, like I said, they were partners with us for years. And it was great. So farm it out, especially if you don't have someone that knows how to teach adults. It's very different than, teaching high school, even college. Like you're talking about 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds that have, habits that need to change and behaviors and things, how to manage people. So that would be my advice.
And I think that there are some topics where it benefits, the organization and the attendees to have an outsider come in, because you're kind of removing, like maybe if I was going to teach the leadership, they might be hung up on like one time where I wasn't a great leader, so I have no business really teaching this leadership. I mean, kind of essential. I mean, not that I have that kind of background, but like essentially like this person saw a blemish on that person's credibility. And so like, it wasn't going to be a positive experience for her. So I think that this is one of those that, that can really pay off. But like you said, you got to vet them, because I think what Jasmine's referencing story-wise, maybe the vetting didn't happen. Maybe it did happen and they didn't care. I don't know. It was like the wildest thing to read.
So wild.
And I'm not a hugger, and I just like felt like I wanted to like hug that poor girl and be like, it's okay, you're safe now. You're safe, like that.
It was like a special victims unit episode.
Yes.
Like, what do you mean? Oh my goodness. No, that one was.
So just if y'all don't know what we're talking about. So if you listen to our lawyer friend, Kate, she has a podcast with another lawyer friend, Marc, called Hostile Work Environment. And a few weeks ago, they referenced a situation at Panda Express out in California. And it was basically one of Panda Express employees was trying to get into leadership, and they told her, hey, in order to do so, you need to go to this seminar that we have. Panda Express was not the company that was training, but they did recommend this particular one in order for her to have to move up. And a lawsuit came out in 2019, and it was just like, we'll link it because you all need to read this article. But one of the things that she had to do was like they had to basically get out of their clothing and be dressed in their underwear in the front of the room. And one guy was so nervous about doing it, like he started crying, I believe. And so then they wanted the girl to hug him. It was just too much. It's too much.
So that's another difference though, right? Because it's one thing to bring somebody into your organization to do this leadership training. It's another thing entirely to just send people to something else that.
Oh my God. And she had to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on her free time.
Mm-hmm.
No,
yeah.
Absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. There's a lot of things like when you bring in any outside party, the company you work for is paying them for a service. That doesn't mean they can do whatever they want. Same thing goes with if you have a third party search firm. You can still give that search firm questions that you want to be asked. You don't just have to let them do whatever they want. It's the same thing with training. It's kind of funny, Christina, you were talking about like, the HR person, you want to be respected by the employees, you want to be respected by leadership. But if you were the one putting folks through this training and it became, a little bit like story time in nature. I would never want an employee to look around and be like, but HR is here, they're going to narc. Like, so having that third party in, does have an element of, I think, freedom with the employees too. I think my folks always felt like they, they could say what they wanted, and it would be in a safe space and it would be confidential. Of course, there wasn't anything that was like so egregious that, it didn't have to get reported. But I think they felt comfortable that it was an outside party. But I knew what the curriculum was because we planned for it in advance. We had gone through it all. We wanted to make sure that, because these folks don't know every single one of our employees' situation, like what's the language like? Is it inclusive? How are you going to be speaking to people? If you're going to break out into small groups, like please be mindful of this dynamic over here. You can still tell a third party all the time how you want to operate, and they're getting paid. And if they want your money, they're going to listen. Did I have people tell me like that session wasn't great or this rubbed me the wrong way? Yes, but we got to have conversation about it. And I think, keeping in touch with that is, I want to know, like, when's the last time someone from the Panda Express executive team to some class where they had to take their clothes off? It's probably been a really long time since they audited whatever was happening in that room. If not, shame on them, because even, for this group, like I said, that we put almost 100 employees through during my tenure, I still checked in with them and they were in twice a year. So you can't just kind of like get complacent either, mix up the facilitator. Even though the curriculum is going to be the same, like you still get to ask questions. Just because you're bringing in a third party doesn't mean they can do whatever they want, is my point.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because I think that a lot of times, I kind of see two different. You either get the corporate customer that's like, you're the expert, do whatever you want, even though you're like digging and pulling for information, like, no, in order to customize this for you or to make sure we meet your goals, I do need some information from you. Or you get that one that wants to be involved in like every little tiny detail. So point me towards the clients that are somewhere in between, because that's what I would like.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to be a pain in the ass, but like I said, they don't come with the smallest price tag.
No.
And I also think that there was an element of it's all in the approach too, with anything, it's all in the approach. And I think, I came from a place of, you are the expert, but this is the curriculum that we chose because we think that's what's going to benefit, this group at this point in time in the business, because you want whatever they're learning to be able to be practically applied as well. Like you're giving them tools, they need to have the opportunity to use it. And, did we change things from time to time? Yeah, because that's what it called for. But I didn't second guess them as a provider of this service. I just wanted to make sure that everyone that was going through the training, felt safe, felt appreciated, felt like they were getting some value from it, because it's a time commitment. The folks that we were using, I think it was every 3 weeks, they were spending their first 4 hours of the day, in that room. So you have to factor in the timing of it as well. Is it you're certainly not going to put, your finance team through a leadership course during quarter close or year end,
Right.
For us, it was, we had some pretty, predictable spikes in business. So I absolutely was not going to put, people in training like right before or during riding season. They would have been very upset. So you want to optimize for, largest value. And of course that has a lot to do with the timing and, what the employees feel like as well. So.
I love that. That was awesome. Really great advice.
Thanks.
So we are closing up. So we want to thank you for coming on and talking with us about this topic, about leadership, giving us some information. And we will link all of your information below. So if you all want to get in contact, if you all want to work or have her come out and, talk to y'all, then we'll have all of that information below. And then you can always follow us. Where can you follow us, Christina?
Oh my gosh, Jasmine, you kicked it over to me. I feel so special. BakedHR at BakedHR on the Insta, and same thing for YouTube. Go subscribe to YouTube so you can see more videos like this. You know, we keep it light on the Insta. We give you some real deal stuff like what Talia brought tonight on the YouTube channel. And if you have questions, comments, concerns, need help with anything, you can email us at bakedhr@gmail.com. And now we are going to hop over to our Instagram Live now. So hopefully we'll see you there as well.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see y'all next time.